Hello everyone, and welcome back to another mission of Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log. Today I'm going to be continuing my character of Captain Sam Bronson, current captain of the NX-03 Challenger. The camera will start with a glory shot of the Challenger at warp. Again, for reference, we are on an NX-class ship, so it is a ship we should be very familiar with. And as maybe it's like a 5 or 6 second shot, panning shots starting in front and panning around behind. And then we'll cut to a scene that I think will be unfamiliar to a lot of people. We will cut to a cargo bay. And inside that cargo bay, something very peculiar has been set up. About half of the cargo bay seems to be currently empty and has been rigged with some kind of netting. There's a machine at one end, and we see Captain Bronson at the other, and he is holding his polyduranide baseball bat and is currently, it appears at least, taking batting practice. There's a pitching machine that's supposedly mimicking some of the greats from more than a century ago, and we see him swing and miss on a curveball. It's at this point that the comm chime goes off. I don't have a button for that, so I'm just going to use the communicator button. And he goes over to the door panel, or the wall panel. Commander Wilson to Cargo Bay 2. Captain, we've just dropped out of warp and Lieutenant Matthews has started preliminary scans. Thanks for the heads up, Charlotte. I'll be up in half an hour. And he thumbs the button and turns off the comm. He goes back over to the pitching machine, presses a remote control button in his pocket, and or probably using a pad, taps a button on the pad, sets it down, gets back in his stance, and swings and misses at another few pitches before we cut to him walking back up to his ready room, bat on his shoulder, pad in his hand, and he starts. Captain Starlog, March 24th, 2155. The Challenger has just dropped out of warp in a system that, previously, only had a number. We diverted from our filed flight plan to inspect an unusual amount of neutrinos being picked up on our long-range scans of the area. Cursory analysis showed little of interest beyond some minor planetary bodies and an unusually dense asteroid field. There must have been 2 celestial bodies that collided here once upon a time. The sheer number of neutrinos proved to be enough of a point of interest that Lieutenant Matthews has made the request that we come out of warp. And that is, I think we'll see him kind of walk through the bridge to get to his ready room. I don't think the ready room has access outside of... No, there's got to be a hallway back there. Yeah. Anyways, we'll see him go through that small hallway that we never see on Enterprise and set his bat down and kind of pull back up his uniform jacket, and then will make his way to the bridge. All right, so he steps out onto the bridge. We see Lieutenant Matthews sitting at the science console on the bridge. Looking over his shoulder currently would be Commander Wilson, and she's got a bit of a frown on her face. And Lieutenant Matthews would say, Captain, good timing. I've got something here I'd like you to take a look at. With your permission, sir, I don't think I want to tell you exactly what I'm seeing. I don't want to bias your initial thoughts. Captain, rightfully, is a little wary, but also extremely curious, and is going to approach the science station, which Lieutenant Matthews will relinquish to him. And we're going to go ahead and make our first test of the day. Using my blue dice, this will be a straight up reason science. So we're looking for a target number of 15, 1 success only. Okay, that is 2 successes. We got a 5 and a 9, so we'll generate a momentum for later. And the captain would say, let me go ahead and mark down that first success. The captain would say, well, if I haven't missed my mark, The source of those neutrinos seems to be a wormhole. Matthews starts to nod his head. Yes, sir. I think we've got a semi-stable wormhole. Based on how the neutrinos are coming at the ship, it looks like this end of the wormhole is not fixed. But considering the fact that we've not had the chance to study a wormhole up close before, and Captain Bronson would nod his head and say, "You want to take the ship closer." Commander Wilson turns and shakes her head at the captain. "Sir, I don't think this is advisable in the slightest." And she gestures to the viewports, and we see the asteroid field. And unlike most asteroid fields in the real world, in the real universe, or at least unlike the only asteroid field that we've actually seen in the real universe, this one much more closely matches what we see in Star Wars. It's very dense. There are asteroids moving all over the place. It looks like it would be a hazard to fly any kind of ship in there. It's not as chaotic as something like the asteroid field in Empire Strikes Back, because asteroids still move with an element of predictability. But it's significantly more dense than, say, our own asteroid field, where you could fly through it, perpendicular to every rock there and never hit anything. The captain would turn to our ensign at the helm, Ensign Monroe. Looking at my cheat sheet. Always, it's gonna take me a while to get used to everybody's names. And he would say, "Ensign, any chance you can fly us into that without much difficulty?" "Without much difficulty, sir. I can certainly fly us in with the deflectors going and the hull polarized. I think we can do it without a scratch." Turns back to Lieutenant Matthews. "And you really think it's worth getting closer? You think there's a wormhole there?" "Yes, sir." "All right. All hands, this is the captain. We're going to be entering a very dense asteroid field. I want everybody to brace yourselves in case of any collisions. Commander Wilson, phaser's ready, just in case any of the big ones get a little too close. Ensign, take us in." And with that, we're going to go ahead and do a daring command test, as the captain orders Ensign Monroe to take the Challenger into the asteroid field. So let's go ahead and see. Again, asteroids move with predictability. They're all moving roughly comparable orbital velocity to one another. They're all orbiting whatever central star is in the system. Obviously, there's a wide range band, but it's dense, and it's kind of this pocket of asteroids as opposed to a more spread out field that we're used to. So I think only a difficulty 1 here. If it was closer to Empire Strikes Back, we'd be certainly rolling difficulty 2, if not higher. So let's go ahead and see what we get. Difficulty 1, we were looking at a target number daring command of a 12. We rolled a 2 and a 4. Our momentum going to waste in this situation since we already have one built up. But Ensign Monroe deftly and rather easily takes the Challenger through the initial asteroid field and into kind of a dead space in the middle that's got a little more leeway to it than other parts that we saw as the ship was flying through. And it's at this point that, for the sake of narrative, I'm going to impose something on the ship here. As the ship pulls in, we see a wormhole not too dissimilar from the shot of the Bajoran wormhole that we are so used to from Deep Space Nine. We see a wormhole open up and starts sucking up asteroids as it seems to be whipping back and forth across this asteroid field. And the Challenger is caught in the aperture of the wormhole itself. And we're going to go ahead and have another task here, another quick break between tasks. Let's see. I think this is going to be, sticking with the red dice. We want to see if Bronson and his crew in particular are able to recover quickly. How quickly they're able to recover, what they see on the other end when they get there. So, let's take a look here. This is going to be... How has Bronson organized his crew? I think this is going to be a control command test. He wants to make sure that everybody's doing their job, focus on the details, focus on the things that they can control, pun partially intended. And he's using the fact that he's built up a good rapport, at least over the first 2 missions. So, control command, although I'm also thinking control engineering could work here. I could see that as a reasonable outcome. Again, difficulty 1. Let's see what we can do with control command. I am rolling well today. That's a 2 and a 7, another 2 successes. Wouldn't have mattered what group of attributes and disciplines we chose anyways. So the ship comes out on the other side, and it's probably a good 30 or 40 seconds. We would have had, on the Star Trek shake scale, maybe started with a 6 or a 7, and then maybe went up to an 8. Some people were getting thrown out of their seats. I think Captain Bronson would have been knocked out of his chair. And eventually, as the shaking stops, we see that the Challenger is on a direct collision course for a planet. And we're going to go ahead and do another test. This will be we'll use the ship stats for this, because I did not build up supporting characters yet. So I intend to do that after this mission, assuming everyone survives. So let's go ahead and do Engines Con for an 8. See if Ensign Monroe can take the Challenger out of danger and off of their collision course. Okay, we do have our 1 success, a 5 and a 12. That's just dandy. That should be our 3rd task. Let's see. No, we did our science task, we did our piloting task. We've done that's our 4th task. That's right. Awesome. Things are starting well. So Ensign Monroe manages to kick the thrusters in, get the impulse drive recalibrated to whatever this spatial displacement kind of disrupted their systems from, and gets the ship at least to a proper velocity to match the planet that they see ahead, at least in its orbit of the primary central star. Status report, Bronson calls out. And slowly we hear everybody on the bridge calling out. Dr. Kieran in sickbay reports that there are a couple of broken bones and quite a few bumps and bruises. He's already sent all of the bumps and bruises back to their stations. Tactical reports, Commander Wilson reports that she's not detecting any enemy, I almost said vessels, enemy vessels, and phasers and photon torpedoes are at the ready. And as everybody else kind of goes around the horn, we get the same basic status from everybody. And lastly, he turns to Ensign Monroe at the helm and says, "Ensign, where are we?" And she'd look to her panel in front of her and would say, "Well, sir, I think we lucked out. It looks like we only got sent 25, maybe 30 light years. It's a little further away than we intended to get from, well, where we were going, but it could have been a lot worse." And the close end of the wormhole, Lieutenant Matthews speaks up. "Captain, it appears to be fixed relatively close to this planet, or at least fixed for the moment. I'm getting signs that it hasn't always been this way. And we'll cut to another shot of the exterior of the ship. We'll see the ship and a little ways off a smaller aperture of the wormhole. It's not nearly as large as the other end. And spewing forth from it are hundreds of asteroids. And they all seem to be heading straight for the planet below. Bronson then would call out, Lieutenant Matthews, are the sensors in a state to be able to take a look at the planet down there, see what sort of damage is happening? And I think we'll make this our 5th task. Last task for the act. Once again, we're going to go ahead and use the ship stats. So let's go ahead and do Sensors Science for a 9. Target number 9, difficulty 1. That's a 12 and an 18. We'll spend our momentum. That's a 6. Awesome. So we do have another success. And Matthews, after 30 seconds to a minute of scanning, says, Captain, I'm picking up signs of civilization down there. Looks like they're in the middle of their maybe industrial revolution. There's certainly signs of elevated carbon recently in the atmosphere. There's indications of burning of coal in greater scale than we tend to see in the earlier eras. Certainly much more than just metallurgy. The captain responds, and those asteroids, are they... And Matthews will nod his head. Yes, sir. They're heading straight for the planet. Seems like, based on this, a number of weeks of barrage that they've already had to endure. Seems like they've made preparations to move everybody underground, but I can't tell from this distance how well that's going. And we'll cut to, as the act ends, a shot of Bronson kind of looking at the view screen, very sober look on his face, concern etched in his features. And that's where we're going to leave off Act 1. We will continue with Act 2, Part 2, in the next episode. In the meantime, I hope you all have an excellent day, week, or whatever. Live long and prosper.